And you'll see that people are afraid, and they shouldn't be afraid of their government.
Right, but if the state would allow ICE to get them right out of jail, then they wouldn't have to go into the communities to search for them.
Think that they
and
are
that's what's
entirely
creating the fear because ICE has to go into the community to look for the people who committed the crimes.
Right. We'll have to agree to disagree on the premise of your question, but what we can we agree on a couple of things. One, we don't necessarily think it's a good idea to pick up a bunch of people who are innocent. We certainly don't think it's good what ICE is doing, where they pick up a lot of people who are actual citizens, and they bring them, they take them, they take them on a 4-hour drive to a detention facility, keep them overnight. The next day they say, "All right, you're free to go. You don't have a cell phone. You don't have your wallet."
Right.
We think that's bad. We think that
pick up citizens. No, that's not good.
Yeah, and we think, and I think that, and we think they should be focusing on violent criminals as opposed to just picking up anybody who might be here.
Like I said, if the state would cooperate
Fair
more.
Enough. You think that they're not doing that? I think they are, and that's
they're not, because you've seen instances where they're waiting for them and they let them out and they don't tell them they're letting them out. And that's where the hassle comes in. But anyway,
I just think that we should approach this with a more reasonable and comprehensive strategy. I would like for us to be a humane nation that treats people with respect and dignity in all these aspects. And whether we give them the right to stay here, I don't know.
And every level of the government needs to cooperate with every other level.
Fair enough.
To get things done efficiently without having to go into communities to look for these people.
All right.
Okay. And that all falls into the public safety and what we were talking about.
Okay.
All right. Let's look at the idea on homelessness. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff going on. I know you've had a situation of homelessness in Nyack, and there's homeless all over the place, especially like LA. I don't know anything about LA, but you see the situation in LA. We have similar situations here in New York where people are just living in tents and stuff under bridges and boxes and stuff. What can you do from the state level to help deal with the homelessness?
It's all funding. I mean, we should be funding more mental health, drug treatment. We should be funding services that would help these people and get them off the street. Rockland County does not have a shelter. Now, I think Rockland does try. Rockland has said, the Rockland County Services, they've said to me, if there's somebody that needs a place to stay overnight, they'll find them a place to stay. Now, they cobble together. It's not like a shelter, but they find hotel rooms here, they find a bed here, a bed there. They make it happen. And God bless them for doing that. But it's not a solution. We deal with that problem in Nyack. There are people that come to Nyack who are homeless. These are not necessarily people who lived in Nyack beforehand, but Nyack tends to be a place where, there's a lot of people. It's dense. There's places to, it's very tough to, go into, New City and, find a place where you can hole up where the way it is in Nyack. So we get some of that, and it's something we deal with every day. And we're trying to, every one of those people that comes here, we know who they are, and we're trying to get them help. We have succeeded in getting many of them help. One guy, he had $50,000 in Social Security that he had never claimed. The police did a wonderful job. OPD, I'm going to commend Sergeant Anthony Palazzolo. I think he's since been promoted, so he may have a new title. But he was wonderful. He's no longer the liaison to our village, but when he worked there, he did a wonderful job interacting with people who are at risk and helping them to get what they need. He was the one that helped, along with some people from the village, to get this gentleman his Social Security benefits. So it's about trying to help them and get them off the street. Now, what do you do if somebody just won't take the help? That's a tougher issue. What can I do as state senator? Try to find funding to help provide for shelters for people who are legitimately homeless, to try to find money to treat mental illness, to treat drug addiction, and also to treat, we talked about affordable housing before, to provide for more housing so that people who are legitimately homeless, because a lot of people are describing, they have a place where they could go, they just don't want to go there because they're in an altered mental state, and they don't want to be there.
That's a whole other issue about dealing with mental illness.
Yeah, that's you want to talk about why people are homeless. It's largely a function of mental illness drug addiction and poverty and lack of affordable housing. That's where it comes from. Nobody chooses to go out into the street other than the very, very mentally ill who don't want to, they want to be able to smoke, so they won't go into a county provided shelter, a hotel room or something like that. It's all root causes on stuff like that. And I know root causes gets a bad name because on the conservative side they think it's too soft, and liberals are too soft on these things, and they always want to talk about the root causes rather than the impact. I mean, we know that these things happen because of poverty and addiction and everything else. But I will tell you this. I had to make a very hard decision a year ago, 2 years, maybe a year or two ago, when we had some increasing population of people that were creating some negative vibes in the downtown, that they were menacing. They were sleeping on benches in our village square. They were aggressively panhandling, and that kind of stuff. It's a police issue, but we worked with the Orangetown Police to try to tamp it down. But one of the things they recommended to us was to take out the benches in Easter Square, which is our village square. Take out the benches because then they wouldn't have anywhere to sit down or lie down or keep their stuff, which is what they were doing. And also that we put a curfew on the park at midnight. So we did both of those things. It did address the problem. I got a lot of flack for it from my friends on the left that it was cruel to take away the benches. I got a lot of flack from people who like to sit on the benches who said, well, now I don't have benches to sit. I said, well, you couldn't sit on the bench anyway because there was a guy sleeping on it all day. Smoking cigarettes and sleeping on it all day. It's not, sometimes you have to make those kind of hard choices. Now, we're putting the benches back this week. We're going to put them in time for this parade this weekend, next weekend. We have July 4th coming up. We have a big celebration July 3rd and July 2nd. And then July 5th, we're doing something in Nyack called Global Rhythms that's going to be aligned with the World Cup. So all of that, so we're getting the benches back. But it's for 60 days. We're going to try it out. If it becomes a magnet for antisocial behavior, they're going to come out again. And the idea of we got to do both, Keith. We got to treat the root causes. We also have to treat the externalities that get created, which is the crime and the vandalism and all the negative antisocial behavior that comes from people if they're not properly treated. The Republicans always want to focus on the law enforcement. The very left wants to focus not on law enforcement but on
find a happy medium.
I try to find a happy medium. So in our budget this year, we put $40,000 for an extra safety patrol for somebody to walk the downtown, because the Orangetown Police does not really focus on walking downtown. They're in their cars, they're responding to calls, they do a wonderful job, but they're not walking a downtown beat. So we said, let's hire what we call the safety patrol to walk the downtown beat. That's the law enforcement side. Mm-hmm. But we also put $40,000 into hiring a social worker that would treat the root causes. So that's the idea, is that you go at it from both angles. You don't just do it from a law enforcement side. And I don't think it's effective if you only do it from the root causes side, because some people, no matter what you do, they're not going to accept your help, and they're going to end up causing a problem. And we need people to go to downtown Nyack. We need people to feel safe going to downtown Nyack, so we have to address that. But the old idea of defund the police, I never agreed with that. The concept of it was to put more money into social work and root causes.
Social worker go talk to a guy who's got a gun on somebody.
Well, I think the idea was to go to somebody who doesn't have a gun, and so it doesn't escalate. But the defund the police was I think a bad idea and a really terrible slogan. But it was a bad concept. But the underlying concept of not just addressing everything from a law enforcement perspective, but also address it from a what can we do to address the root causes, I think is what made sense. And that's what we did in Nyack. And that's what I think we should be doing up in Albany.
A couple more, just some quick topics.
Sure.
Two more quick topics, and then a final summary question. The idea of the transgender stuff, especially dealing with kids.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I feel if you're 18 and you want to do things to your body, as they say in Yiddish, Gegen sind Reben, you go with God, do what you want. Okay? If you're an adult, you can make those decisions. But when you deal with minors who, they don't even know what the hell they want to do as a career, but they can sit there and have their bodies, for the most part, mutilated and reworked chemically. That's where I draw the line. I don't know where you draw the line on that, but about dealing with children and transgender stuff.
It's obviously a very fraught topic. It's a topic that makes people very uncomfortable, as you've described. Here's what I would say. Transgender care is health care. And I do not feel that it's my right or obligation, I don't think it's your right or obligation either, to make decisions about the health care of any individual unless that, when we can talk about vaccines as being a separate issue, because whether you get vaccinated or not could have an impact on the outer public. But if it's a healthcare issue that only really relates to you personally, I'm very reluctant to put the force of the state behind making decisions for the individual. If it's the individual and their parents, if they're underage, and their doctors, that's a decision they should make. Now, there's other issues that come up with transgender that we can talk about, but I do believe that people have a right to medical decisions. I don't think that the state should get involved in them. And we generally do not get involved in them. Like, for example, I believe in I believe in people should have the right to die with dignity, and if that involves euthanasia and it's properly managed, that I think that we should allow that, because I think we should not be making a decision if you have certain protocols in place to protect somebody from making a rash decision, and they're just depressed, and they really, you have to have there has to be somebody it has to be somebody who's an intermediary, who's neutral and objective, that can actually do that. But I think when it comes to trans care, am I really going to tell this young person, no, you can't do this, even though every fiber of your being says that you are a male and you're in a female body? You got to wait till you're 18. You got to wait another 5 years, 6 years, however long it is. You got to wait to do that because I'm not comfortable with you making this. Even though you want to do it and your parents are okay with it and the doctor thinks that it's appropriate.
There's a young lady who I've seen on various news shows on both sides of the networks that transitioned and regretted it, and now is back. And she did it because she was told, the doctors told her this, she was told things by doctors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So she did it. She detransitioned, and now she can never breastfeed her baby. There's things that when you're dealing with.
All right, let's just stop there for a second. That's a horrible situation you're describing. It's heartbreaking. It's tragic. It's obviously there was a failure in the system, but we don't base policy based on the outlying situations like that. Here's the thing.
But can we afford to have more of that coming out? They say, that people who they talk about suicide rates and things like that. I'm not sure on those numbers that they put out. The whole thing comes down to let people grow up and make a decision.
But the problem
is
that if they do not, as I understand it, and I'm not an expert in this medical area, as I understand it, the later you wait, the more problematic it becomes to try to transition. That it's easier to transition younger. Now, I'm going to agree with you. Are there people that have made a mistake and they regret it? I'm sure. I'm sure that there are people that regret all sorts of things they did when they were younger that they now have to live with. But again, I come down to it, Keith. I don't have a right to tell that kid what to do, and you don't have a right to tell that kid what to do either. The state definitely doesn't have the right to tell that kid what to do. It should be up to the doctor, the parents, the kid.
Okay, let's take one more angle on this, then we'll move on to the next issue.
Okay.
You've got the situation of biological males who are transitioning into female sports and into female locker rooms. And a lot of girls are not, I've got a granddaughter. Okay, she's only 13 months old, but eventually she's going to be in school and stuff. I'm not going to want some person who is a male coming into the locker room where she's going to be changing. On top of that, in sports, men are stronger than women in a lot of sports. You have that one young lady who was in the volleyball that got a ball smashed in her face, and she had now mental issues and can't even get a scholarship that she wanted. You got
I agree. I'll cut you off there because you just give me more examples of the same issue. Here's what I would say, Keith. We're in agreement on this. I do not think that people who are transitioning or have transitioned should be able to compete in the sport in these situations where size and body composition that you were born with. It's not right for somebody who was born with male physiology who transitions, and God bless them, that's what they want to do, but they then want to compete as a woman
gender.
in their new gender identification, that they want to compete in women's sports when they've got a male physiology. I don't think they should be allowed to do
And
that.
it's not just a matter of physical, even racing and swimming and stuff like that.
Well,
It's
no,
all-
that's physical. That's all physical.
Yeah.
Anything.
Otherwise, it's
I mean, if it's
I mean, contact stuff.
chess, I don't know
Yeah,
why
well,
they would
that-
be
yeah.
barred from chess.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know
I
why they'd
played
be
chess,
barred
yeah.
from something that does not involve a physical component.
Yeah.
But if it involves a physical component, I think it's sad that they can't compete. I feel
set
bad
up
for them.
a-
But the fact is, not everybody gets to do everything. That's the
then
thing.
Set up a separate category.
You can do that. You can
You have
do a
male,
variety
you
of
have
things.
female. Set up a transgender league or transgender.
Sports are different.
Yeah,
And
but you
especially
set
when
up-
you're competing with people, they set sports up, have all sorts of rules. You have weight classes,
Right.
you've got age
Well, then
classes,
set up a
you've got
separate transgender.
fine. I don't know how you would solve the problem. I will just say with you that I think that the LGBTQ plus movement, that I am 100% behind in a million ways. That I was the first recipient of the LGBTQ Business Champion Award from Rockland Pride when they gave it out about 10 years ago, because I was involved very heavily with bringing Rockland Pride to Nyack and helping them find a home and getting them started financially and everything like that.
You talk about
I love
promotion,
Pride.
Pride Month.
And we're in the middle of Pride Month, so I am 100% on it. But I will say this: I have said to the people at Pride that it was a strategic, and I think it was just a general mistake to highlight that issue. I think that you say to the kids who are disadvantaged this way, "I'm sorry, you just can't compete because you have an advantage that's not fair. You have an advantage that's not fair."
How many girls have been knocked out of competitions because of that, and they worked their whole lives to get there?
Not fair, and I'm with you on that. And I think it's an issue that is such a marginal issue. It affects so few people, but it's gotten some outsized attention. So I think that it was a strategic mistake for anyone to try to push that type of issue from the movement side, because I think that it really created a backlash, which has hurt trans people in a variety of other ways, as well as LGBTQ plus IA people in a variety of ways.
Okay. All right. Last topic, then we'll get to the summary. The no bail laws. That is something that since 2019 that has been a major controversy. There's been attempts to reform the reforms, but there's been very little reform in it. You still
Well, it
have
was
people,
reformed once. It was reformed about a
Yeah,
year after.
but it didn't do a lot. Reforms they were more cosmetic reforms than actual reforms to the system.
Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind, this whole bail reform was set up by defense attorneys only. The police weren't involved. Prosecutors weren't involved. Nobody on the side of the people were involved. Only the people that were there were defense attorneys setting this up. I mean, your house gets burglarized, okay? The way this law is set up, the person who burglarized your house can come back into your house to check out the crime scene. I'm sorry, that's victimizing somebody twice.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that our bail laws didn't need to be reformed. I'm going to give an agreement on that for those that say it needed to be reformed, and it did. There are things that people need, but they swung the pendulum way too far to the other side. What would you do to help? I mean, my take on this is tear this whole thing down, start from scratch, go back to the way it was, and then reform each individual part of it.
Going back to the way it was wouldn't be starting from scratch. I
Well,
could see
I say go
starting
back
from
to the way it was. At
scratch.
least we have something in place, and then start from scratch. Say, okay, this is what we see is wrong here. We'll fix it this way. This is what we see is wrong here. Take it in, but take the entirety of the community: sheriffs, police,
Okay.
prosecutors.
Agreed.
Not just defense attorneys.
All right, let me address this. Let me start by saying that bail reform was one of those things that, remember we talked about good intentions and well-intentioned efforts
Right.
to address a real problem.
Mhm.
And the real problem was that bail laws impact disproportionately people who are impoverished, people
Don't
who are
commit
poor.
the crimes.
So, Well, don't. What you're saying is, we don't know that they committed a crime yet. They haven't been convicted of anything. They've been just accused of committing a crime. So the argument was that people who have been accused of a crime, but have not yet been even tried for that crime, that putting them in jail and making them come up with money that they don't have to get out of jail led to lots of abuses where people would languish in jail for months without getting an opportunity to get their day in court. And they had and here's the thing, Keith. You've come up with a couple times with like, here's the outsized example of somebody who was, the things that happen in immigration, or things that happen in transgender care or whatnot. Well, there are situations where innocent people get arrested and get sent to Rikers and spend months there, and in at least one case I know died there and never got their trial. And it's horrible. So this was an attempt to say, well, let's not require people to pay up to get released. However, very quickly after it got done, it then got revised, and I don't even know what the revision was, but it did get revised. And I do agree with you that I have a similar discomfort with the idea that people can literally you can witness them committing a crime, and they get a desk appearance ticket. The police come give them a desk appearance ticket, and then they're still standing there in front of you. They commit an assault on you. They don't get taken anywhere. They get issued the appearance ticket right there, and the police are very frustrated. As a mayor, as someone who's responsible for the, I don't run a police force, but I'm ultimately responsible for the security of the people that live in Nye, okay, and the safety of the people that live in Nye, and for the well-being and for the social for things to eliminate antisocial behavior. It's very frustrating to me because I see people who do awful things and they're back on the street in hours. And that's a problem.
They're out before police finish the paperwork that got them into the place.
That is a problem. And I believe that you're right, that we need to find a balance that we can distinguish between people for whom there is some element of...
I mean, there were 400 crimes.
You have to balance someone's ability to pay. Like, you can't say to somebody who really doesn't have any money, we're going to put $10,000 of bail on you, because then what you're doing is you're sentencing them to jail without giving them a trial. At the same time, that's one side. On the other side, I don't love the idea of letting somebody who just punched me in the face to basically, and I'm still out there, and they come waltzing down the street again, having punched me in the face because the cops couldn't take them away.
And there were 400 crimes taken off the bail requirement, including stuff around schools, pornography around schools, prostitution around schools. I mean, you're exposing kids. I mean,
I think
the whole thing was ill-conceived.
If I have a voice, which hopefully in January I will be a voice for some moderation in the bail reform, because I do believe that we have to balance the rights of the accused, because they haven't been convicted yet,
right,
and the rights of the people who are too poor to pay cash bail, against the rights of victims and basically the interest of society to have law and order and to have an orderly society. And I think there's a balance to be drawn. I think that the way things were pre-bail reform, I think they were too tilted to one side. I do think that bail reform might have tilted them too much to the other side. And I think that there's got to be a medium, and everybody who's involved in this, victims groups, groups that deal with the incarcerated, groups that deal with people who are mentally ill and the social problems,
prosecutors,
and then
police.
Prosecutors and police and attorneys, and everybody should be at that conversation, and they should work to try to find a solution so that if someone punches you in the face, they at least spend the night in jail. They at least spend some time away that they get to cool off.
And get rid of the thing that, okay, you burglarized my house, you can come back in and look at the crime scene.
It's nuts.
Okay.
It's very discouraging, I think, to the social fabric for people who violate our criminal codes to suffer no obvious consequences for it, At the same time, I don't want to put people who have not been convicted of a crime in jail for until they can raise the money to get themselves out.
I'll agree with you on a minor crime like a petty theft or things like that.
Well, that may be
but
the balance. Maybe the balance is, it depends on the nature of the crime. And that gets. I think it's factored in now. It is factored in now.
Not to,
But they could revise. They could take another look at it.
It's not factored in because you got people who commit violent crimes that are getting out just as easily as somebody who's committed a petty crime.
Yeah. See, here's the thing, Keith, and this is why this is kind of my whole.
Let me
sum up. So my whole approach to public policy is I'm not ideological. I'm pragmatic. All right. I am a moderate Democrat, pro-business, but also I'm very pro-civil rights. I'm pro-gay rights. I'm pro. I'm basically leave people alone, let them live their lives. That's kind of my social, cultural approach to the world. Okay, and I believe in providing for the common good. I believe in the dignity of work. I believe that people who work for the state should have pensions. All the things that we've talked about today. But my general approach to things is I take the issue as it is. So there are some things, for example, we talked about immigration. And I believe that what ICE has done is really lawless and should be stopped, and we should not be enabling their abuses of the system. And so I probably came out a little more left than a little lefty of the side of that. Mm-hmm. But when it came to when we're talking about homeless people, I think I'm right down the middle. I think I'm where most people are with that. When it comes to the bail reform, I'm right down the middle. I think I'm where most people are with that. I'm not on the left, I'm not on the right, I'm right down the center.
Okay.
And when it came to the trans people in sports, I definitely was on, I think that's an issue most people agree with me on. And there are people that disagree with me who I respect immensely. And I agree with them on so many other things, but I take each issue as it comes. I don't have a hardcore ideology.
Okay, so why then should people say, okay, you know what? Bill Barber's been in there a couple of terms, been doing a good job. I'm happy with the way he's doing things. What should make those people turn around and say, you know what? I'm going to give Rand a shot now?
Well, I would say a couple things. One is, I think Bill's a good guy. He works in good faith. You say he's done a good job. I think that
I didn't say I say he's a good guy. I said people say.
I think people might. I mean, I think that he's an inoffensive guy who he's a nice man and he gives off that vibe. I don't think he's been particularly effective as a state senator of getting things done. I will give him credit that half of the job of the state senator is policy based and bringing the bacon back to Rockland County. Okay, that's the part that he really has no effectiveness in, because he doesn't have any impact on policy because he's a Republican. He doesn't bring money back to the district, partly because he's a Republican in a Democrat-controlled state Senate. But also because I don't think he necessarily has that's not his personality type to go out and, pull money down, pull grants down. That's just not, he's a more mild, he's an accountant. I'm a businessman. I was an entrepreneur. He's an accountant. Accountants are very valuable people. They perform very vital service. I've hired many accountants in my life, but they're not the people I would hire to go do a job which requires persuading people to give my district money, okay? So that half of the job, I don't think he's done very well. The half of the job that he's done very well, and I give him credit for, is he, by all accounts, runs a very good constituent service shop. And as state senator, you have to be an advocate for the people that live in your district, and you have to help them with other government services or whatever problems they might have. I try to do that in Nyack as mayor. I try to be an advocate for the people when they have problems with the village government, with tickets or a building department or roads or something like that. I'm their advocate, and I have more successes than failures in terms of getting things done for them. So I feel like, and for 25 years I ran a service business, one of the most successful businesses in the history of Rockland County. So I know how to run a service business. So I feel like I can do the part that he does well, which is servicing the needs of constituents. I think I can do that just as well as he's done, if not better, because I've got more experience in customer service than he ever did. And on the other hand, on the policy side, he doesn't have an impact on policy, and he doesn't bring money back to the district. So those two things, he doesn't do this part very well, and I'll do better than him on that. And this part, I think we both will do well. So what I would say to somebody who's thinking about it, I would say, we talked about all the things this county needs: money for infrastructure, public transportation. Everything we need requires money. Help for the mentally ill, help for the homeless, help for people living in poverty, more affordable and attainable housing. All those things require attention from the state. And I'm very good at getting attention. And I will be a great senator for Rockland County to bring back money, to bring back resources, to bring back attention, to pass policies that I think align with the values of most people who live in Rockland County.